Welcome, everybody. I'm Claudia Morales. I'm a concert producer with the music division, and I'm welcoming you to tonight's pre-concert talk, and welcome to Jupiter String Quartet. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Jupiter String Quartet were founded in 2001. Their chamber music honors and awards include the grand prizes in the Banff International String Quartet Competition and the Finshof National Chamber Music Competition in 2004. In 2005, they won the Young Concert Artists International auditions in New York City, which quickly led them to a busy touring schedule. They received the Cleveland Quartet Award from the Chamber Music America in 2007, followed by the Avery Fisher Career Grant in 2008. In 2007 through 2010, they were in residence at the Chamber Music Society in Lincoln Center Chamber Music. And in 2009, they received a grant from the Fromm Foundation to commission a new quartet from Vaughan, Visconti for CMSLC performance at Alice Tooley Hall. In 2012, the Jupiter String Quartet members were appointed as artists in residence and faculty at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where they continue to perform regularly in the beautiful Carnett Center for the Performing Arts, maintain private studios, and direct their chamber music program. Wow. So you guys, I don't know if you know, but this is their second time with us. They performed here 20 years ago in December, and I found the program. What about that? I found the program, which is not quite 20 years, but they were here in December 16, 2005. And they are here because they're going to perform at the Coolidge, and they're going to perform with our Stradivarius instruments. They spent 2 days working with the instruments, and we would like to hear your experience. If you don't mind, please introduce yourself and let us know what instrument you are playing tonight.
Sure. I'll start. My name is Nelson Lee. I'm the first violinist in the quartet, and I'm using the Betz Stradivarius, and yeah, there are 3 Stradivarius violins that they let us try and choose from. So Meg and I tried all of them, and we kind of identified the one that we felt most comfortable with and we thought would fit best in the group. I mean, but they all felt really, really amazing. I mean, I think we're all feeling pretty spoiled right now. And I don't know if we're going to be able to go back to our other instruments, actually.
I'm Meg Freivogel. I play second violin in the quartet. I'm playing the Castelbarco Strad, and the one that we didn't choose but is still so lovely is right in the cabinet over here on the left side, this right-hand cabinet. I mean, it's quite a treat. We got to come into this room and play 3 Strads first thing off the bat. So we've been looking forward to this concert. We have fond memories of being here 20 years ago, and we're so happy to be back.
Yeah, and I'm Liz Freivogel, Meg's sister, and I play viola. I'm playing on the Cassavetti viola, which is from, I think, 1727. It's the youngest, I think, of the 4. And it's just lovely to play on. It's interesting for me, too, because violas are not a standard size like violins. So it's a little bit different size than the one I'm used to. So that will be a challenge, but I'm going to do my best. It's very close to mine. But just the sound, you can feel the sound. I was telling them yesterday, in your jaw as you're playing. It's just vibrating there. It's amazing.
And I have the Castelbarco cello, which is from 1697. So I guess it was also owned by the same Spanish count as Meg's violin. And it's one of very few Stradivari that hadn't been cut down. So a lot of the celli were later slimmed. So this one is in its original size, which it has the most beautiful sound. I mean, I was remarking that it feels like every note rings the same way. You know, like on my Toyota Camry of a cello that I have at home. Like there are some notes that are great, and then there are some notes that are not as good, you know. But on these instruments, it's like every single note has the same amount of resonance, which is kind of miraculous.
And I was about to ask about your experience playing the instrument. Some of you have already mentioned that, but can you talk about whether you felt that the instruments opened up to you throughout these 2 days. How was it at the beginning, and how does it feel now?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I was trying to make sure that I let the instrument speak for itself because it's such an amazing instrument. I think almost the worst thing I can do is try too hard to make it happen. So just trust that, you know, the instrument's going to speak. And the more I get used to it, then I can trust that in myself too. So I do feel that process, you know, happening over the couple days that I've gotten to play, you know, for a few hours each day. Yeah.
It's a funny thing, your concept of sound. I think we anticipate a certain sound in our head, and that has to do with the instrument that we play most of the time. So even from yesterday to this morning, like I felt like after about 4 or 5 hours of playing it yesterday, I was feeling really in tune with it. I started again today, and I was really surprised by the sound again. And I think that's just, you know, my ears catching up a little bit to, or my brain catching up to the sound of the instrument. But like Liz said, they speak so quickly and easily that we just have to sort of get out of the way of the instrument. So hopefully we can do that tonight. We'll see.
They don't, a lot of these old Italian instruments, I don't have that much experience with them, but they don't want to be overplayed. It's like if you can quickly like oppress the instrument, so you don't have to ever force, and they still have like an extra gear that you can access at any time, which is pretty amazing. So you can play a very easy forte sound, and if you want more, it's always there for you, but then the dynamic range below is also amazing, so it's just fun to do.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to do less, actually. So just like let it work for you. And the other thing that has struck me the last couple days that's really different from my instrument is that the sound when we're playing it, the sound's right next to us. But with the Strads, it feels a little bit like the sound is still a little distant at the same time. It doesn't feel like the sound's like right next to my ear somehow. And I think it's because it's resonating so much and like filling out the space in the hall and then coming back to you. Like you can sense the reverb coming back as well as the sound that's coming out there. So just kind of this weird phenomenon and distance in the sound that we've all kind of gotten used to, I think.
And going back in memory, it's interesting because you chose the opposite instrument. I mean, you switched. 20 years ago, you played the Betts and you played the Casabarco. Do you have a memory of how that sounded at that time and how that reflects your moment as a musician now?
Yeah, I'm sure there are many things that go into it. I mean, like we said, we are happy to play any of these instruments. This time around, Nelson was commenting that the Betts that he's playing is a similar kind of shape and size to the current instrument he usually plays, which is an Antognazzi violin. So it's a little wider in the shoulders. The spacing on the fingerboard is slightly different than the one I'm playing, which is slightly slimmer in the shoulders, and it's the longer pattern of Strad. So I think that was one small thing just for comfort, maybe. I feel like the Betts is like an animal of a violin. I mean, it's so, you can have a really huge sound. So, and the Casabarco, I think maybe it plays differently. I don't know if that's so much the setup. I was just talking to Dan this morning. The Betts has a little bit more tension on it, and the one I'm playing has a little bit less. So I think that changes the sonority a little bit. So both of those things came into play for me when choosing it.
So yesterday, as part of their experience here at the library, we were able to put together a display for them across the street, kind of like going back into the music that they played for some of these 20-some years. And I was wondering if you can speak to what you saw from our music treasures, and from what you saw, what caught your eye the most and why?
Well, it was a wonderful experience because we had just come from Florida where we were playing the Mendelssohn Octet, and this was with the Jasper String Quartet, and they had suggested a different articulation in the finale of that piece. I won't go into the nitty-gritty of it, but it was a way of playing that we never knew about. And they said, oh, we discovered that this is in the manuscript. And I was like, oh, really? I never knew. And so for the concert, we played it that way. And then we came to DC, a week later or 4 days later, and Claudia had presented us with the manuscript of the Mendelssohn Octet. So I quickly turned to the finale and took a picture, and sure enough, there it was.
Yeah.
And quartets and octets have been playing this in a different way for a long time. So this was the first time I had the experience of playing it this way, and then finding the proof in the pudding like 2 days later. So it was cool. Yes, it does.
Sounds very different.
It's very different, and it fixes. It's a famously difficult place for balance in the last movement, and it actually. I mean, of course, Mendelssohn knew what he was doing. It fixes the balance of the octet if you do this.
Instead of it being like dum bum ba bum ba da, it's ba ba bum ba da.
So it's syncopated.
it's a little more like of a big syncopation feeling. That's less oriented around the downbeat, and for some reason the editor missed that middle slur, or yeah.
Although Mendelssohn's handwriting is very neat, so I'm not sure. I think somebody just decided that they knew better than Mendelssohn. But in contrast to Beethoven's handwriting, which is incredibly messy.
It's a mess, yeah. I don't know how anyone ever makes a definitive score out of it, because he's scribbling all in the margins and crossing things out.
And yeah, there were layers of colors of different pencils and ink on Beethoven's. We were trying to figure this out. It looks like after, you can just see him reworking and reworking. I mean, that's such a, that it's just so ingrained in his compositional style, and you can see it on the paper. It's really neat to see. So he would put dots that he wanted to add when he went back and listened to it or something, and you can see all these different layers. It's amazing.
And it's kind of remarkable to me that, I mean, when I think of Beethoven's music, it's full of that kind of struggle. It's like you can see his personality in his handwriting, and you can hear it in his music, whereas Mendelssohn, everything was easy for Mendelssohn. I mean, he was a prodigy, like Mozart was a prodigy, but probably more so. And it looks effortless on the page when you look at his handwriting. And the same is probably true for the Mozart manuscript we looked at. So you can kind of sense the personalities of the composers by looking at their. And you'll be able to view it. Actually, one of the wonderful librarians has put some manuscripts of Beethoven's out here.
And going back to the bases, you guys are very close-knit with some dynamics within the quartet. Can you please talk about who we have here and how you guys met?
Sure. I can start, I guess. So Meg and I are sisters, as I said, and we actually grew up in Bethesda for much of our life, so we're really happy to be back here. Our parents worked in the Washington Bureau of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, so we lived here till I was middle of high school for me, middle school for Meg. And we grew up playing quartets with our two brothers. We would go play at the Levine School. I don't know if any of you know this. That's where we learned. We had our first chamber music coachings with a coach named Oliver Edel. He was an amazing cellist. So that's how we got our start in chamber music. And then maybe someone else wants to continue.
Yeah, I'll just say how the four of us met. We were finishing degrees, 3 of us were finishing degrees at the Cleveland Institute of Music and trying to figure out what to do next. Nelson had the idea of starting the quartet. And I said, well, what about my sister? she might make a good 4th member. So we've been together since about 2001, 2002. We started with sort of summer intensive programs. There was a program called the Yellow Barn Music Festival in Vermont, and of course out in Aspen. We started that way, and then we also, actually last time we were here, in 2005, we were still students at the New England Conservatory because they have a wonderful graduate quartet masters that you can earn. So it's an excuse to stay in school longer before you have to have a real job. Yeah.
I was curious to know, in terms of the repertoire, how do you guys go about music selection for the season? What are the dynamics that you have as a quartet to make those decisions?
I can start, I guess. Yeah, that's a great question. It's so we have kind of a meeting every year and try to come up and with pieces that we want to play and programs that we're interested in, and oftentimes the criteria that we use to put these programs together, we want to have diversity on the program. We want to have music from different eras and different genres, and then maybe one of the next things we think about is perhaps like a theme that might find connections between the pieces in the program so that there's some sort of flow and structure to it. So yeah, there are a lot of these different variables that we try to consider, and also just like what pieces that we really, really want to learn and play and that we think my audiences might be receptive to. And one lucky thing is that in the quartet repertoire, there's just no dearth of music. There's just so much music at our disposal being written now, and then of course all the great music that's been written over the last 300 years. So we have so much to choose from, so actually it becomes a pretty daunting task in that way. So yeah, we usually come together with about 4 or 5 programs that we cycle through the season. Tonight's program, it's kind of a little bit of a mix and match from a couple different programs that we had going, but it felt like the best, I think, for this particular venue and for, and also oftentimes the presenters also have influence and input on the programs that because they have the best sense for their audience, I think, and for what's been played recently in these venues.
When we started the booking process and we were looking at the programs that you had now for 25, 26, I was really interested in exactly that, the diversity of options that we had and to cover different periods and contemporary music as well. What was the rationale for selecting Carlos Simon's piece and Shulamit Ron piece within the same program?
Well, I mean, this is a little bit of a spoiler because I'm going to say this on stage in about an hour and a half. But I mean, both of these pieces ask the audience to reflect on people who were oppressed, who were displaced, who indeed were annihilated or attempted to be annihilated. And of course, I'm talking about the Great Migration, which is what Carlos Simon's piece is based on, and then Shulamit Ron is writing about the Holocaust. So both of these composers on the first half are 21st century voices that are kind of looking backward and reflecting on these events that are still resonating today and asking us to think about them through music. So, I mean, I think that's the primary connection there. It's kind of heavy, but I think it's important right now for us to continue to think about that. So I'll say a little bit more about that. I'm assuming you're all coming to the concert. And then the Beethoven, this is a historic place for string quartets. It's always celebrated the art of the string quartet. I'm sure that this Opus 130 has been played on this stage many, many times. It just feels like Beethoven, with this quartet of Italian instruments, is a perfect composer to play here. And you house the manuscript to the second movement of Opus 130, which you can see and we'll play. And it's just a cool thing. So anyway.
One final question. As we reflect in the first time that you were here 20 years ago and today, how has Jupiter's sound evolved in these 20 years? Or have you reflected on that and worked at the specific sound? Can you speak to that?
It's a really good. Oh,
That's a very hard question to answer.
Everyone has something to say.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because, it's always, the hardest thing is we're always inside the sound. We've learned over time, take turns going out into the hall and actually listen, how does it sound in that space? But yeah, I mean, the first few years we were together, I feel like that was the biggest part of our work together, was to try to come up with a cohesive sound together. And I think the interesting thing over the last few years, as we've gotten so comfortable with each other, has been that actually now there's a little more freedom in how we play with each other. We can trust that quartet sound because we have built it up over so much time. So the blending part is almost like the easier part, and now I feel like we know each other so well that we can have a little more individual freedom to play within that. So if I were to point to one thing, maybe that has changed a little bit, it's that we have just a little bit more leeway within that quartet sound. But it's something that's we're constantly working on it, trying to come up with new colors, trying to come up with new ways of playing things. We talk about it for hours, so yeah.
I will say, probably because of who our mentors have been in the Cleveland Quartet, mostly the Cleveland Quartet, but also some other quartets like the Takash Quartet, we really try to have a democratic sound. So a sound where you can hear everyone, but it's, 4 equal voices having a conversation. You'll hear this probably, it will be really evident in the Grosse Fugue. A fugue is a perfect example of this, right, where everyone gets to recycle the material and say it sort of differently from each other. So you'll hear that at the end of the program. But really trying to make a sound that kind of blends in the middle of the group and then kind of goes out into the audience, and that's built from the bass up. So we try to think of our sound kind of starting with the cello and everyone layering on top of that and creating color inside of that sound. That's partly why we put the cello in the middle of the quartet too. Sometimes you'll see cellists on the outside. We find it's easier to feel that sound when the cello is in the middle. But every quartet has a different concept of sound. That's, I think, where ours maybe started.
What time is it? Do you guys know? We have, okay, let's do 2 questions before we let them go. We're here.
Thank you. Do you have non-quartet lives, and what do they look like?
Yes, yeah, they look like tired parents. We have 7 children among us. I mean, Meg and I don't know if you heard this, Meg and I are married. So we have 3 children together. Liz has 2 children, Nelson has 2 children. So those are the moons of Jupiter. And they keep us busy. And we all live in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, basically on Iowa Street.
We live
We're very close to campus and very close to each other geographically. Yes. And
we also teach as part of our artist in residence position there. So we each have about 10 private students. We run the chamber music program at the University of Illinois. So when we are back in Illinois, we're busy with that and also with family things. And then when we're on the road, it's actually the easier part of our lives.
I'm an ex-school teacher, so I could actually speak loudly without this. Which is speak to the bows that you're using.
I mean, yeah, because we're using our own bows actually.
Oh.
Yeah, I think there are a couple bows that they have here in the library also, like some amazing French bows. But I think to get used to a new bow and a new instrument, that would probably be an additional challenge. I'm sure it's doable, especially if you have great, hardware like they have here. But but we are all using the bows that we typically use on our own.
Yeah, there's some batuto coleño things we do with the stick. I don't know if they'd be very big fans of us doing that with their bows.
On the topic of your lives outside of the quartet, I was really interested in the evolution of, you talked about how the quartet has grown and the sound has cohered over the past 20 years. I was curious if there were events in each of your lives that have influenced your growth as musicians, maybe becoming parents, maybe big moves, maybe, I'll let you fill it in.
That's a great question. I mean, I think every every rehearsal is like an opportunity to rethink how you're doing something. I mean, that's what's beautiful about this art form, I think, is that it never becomes automatic. Like, you're constantly challenged by the repertoire, challenged by your colleagues, inspired by the repertoire, inspired by your colleagues. So like every rehearsal is an opportunity to try to do something more beautifully, individually and collectively. And I'm sure that the answer to your question is yes. Like, as I got older, and matured in different ways and had life experiences like having children, it certainly changed how I was thinking about music and how to make these notes turn into emotion through sound and things like that. Probably tempos are getting slower.
I think also we've all been teaching a lot more the last 10 years since we got the residency at Illinois, and I think teaching has had a profound impact, I think, on all of us in terms of our own playing and how we hear music and our own individual technique and being able to put in words these things that you maybe had not thought about before. And I think that's also had a really big impact on us.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight, and please give them a big round of applause.